Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled Greater Works You Shall Do, Part 6, the procedural model for greater works, how you can do greater works in heaven and on earth. The podcast objectives are introduce the procedural model for greater works, analyze the role of faith in doing greater works, reveal the key to unlocking the many blessings of Elohim, and reveal why the procedural model is the most critical for greater works. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcast or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. How do you unlock the power to do greater works? Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome back to our Word from a Watchman series. In the most recent podcast, we concluded our analyses of the analytical model for greater works, and we came to see why it is the will of Elohim for the chosen elect to do greater works in these last days. Quite simply, it is because there is no other way for us to be saved. Now, we spent the majority of that podcast analyzing some of the tight spots we will find ourselves in during the Great Distress. And it was clear to see that we will not survive these crises without greater works. Now, by arriving at this conclusion, we not only establish the purpose, times, and seasons for greater works, but we also completed the third of the four primary models for greater works, and thus only one model remains. Enter the procedural model. Let's talk about it. Now, as you know, the procedural model addresses the how factor. That is to ask, how do you unlock the power to do greater works? That, my friends, is the question. As I say, we have already established A, who can do greater works, B, what constitutes a work as a greater work, and C, why it is Yahuwah's will for his set apart ones to do greater works in these last days. And thus, only one question remains. How do you operate in the power of Elohim to do greater works in these last days? Here again, that, my friends, is the question. And today, we will begin to find the answer. Let's get started. All you have to do is believe. Now, first things first, the procedural model for greater works is the most complex model. And this is why the Ruach led me to establish the other three models as a priority. For this will make understanding the procedure for greater works easier. Now, we should start by analyzing the path we must follow to do greater works. In this order, the beginning of every great work begins with a vision. That is, a specific word of prophecy concerning Yahuwah's will for your life, which fulfills every guideline. To wit, the vision will have a purpose, a time, a season, a messenger, a sequence, a people, and a place. Now, here's where faith comes onto the scene. Vis-a-vis, the vision is aligned with your future purpose. Ergo, it is for an appointed time in a future season, a key matter which supports the following inflection point. Get this. The vision will be hard for many to believe because the vision does not reflect their current reality. Quite the contrary. The vision reflects a future reality which is not yet real. Now, that was the inflection. Here is the problem. The majority of men and women will doubt the vision for the simple but sure fact that they can't see a path to the vision becoming their reality. Here is why. The spiritual contrast between your current position and your future purpose is huge, and it requires a more formidable version of you. Now, here lies another inflection. To wit, many will be enthralled by the vision of Elohim and the amazing potential of their future self, but they will find it very difficult to believe that the man or the woman in the vision is someone they can actually be. And here again, this is where faith comes onto the scene. For as you have learned, every degree of perfection is an evolution of faith. Ergo, the will of Elohim will never be done in your life if you don't believe. As the saying goes, you must see it to believe it, and then you must believe it to receive it. And the good news is that you have already seen the vision, for Yahuwah has revealed it to you. From now, all you have to do is believe it. My dear friends, take my advice and don't worry about the path you must follow to get there. For by faith, you will achieve it. For you can inherit any reality if by the Spirit you can conceive it. And according to your faith, you will receive it. Praise Yah. The greatest validations of your faith. Now, if you're keeping a list of all the boxes you must check to do greater works, that's good. And you should have faith at the top, for you will never do greater works on behalf of the kingdom of Elohim if you don't have the faith to believe in the vision of Elohim. Facts. Now, that said, you must understand that saying you have faith to believe means nothing if you don't put your faith into action. As I say, it might not be tomorrow and it might not be today, but at some point you will have to prove it. And if you can't prove it, there will be a price to pay. For look, listen, it has been written, I say to you that for every idle word that men speak, they shall give an account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you shall be declared righteous, and by your words you shall be declared unrighteous. Now, that said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: how do you put your faith into action so that A, you are not found guilty of idle words, and B, you stay on the path to doing greater works in accordance with the will of Elohim? The answer is sure. Vis-a-vis, you must add obedience, virtue, and the fear of Elohim to your faith. And collectively, this is the second box you must check to understand how you can do greater works in heaven and on earth. Now, we know this because you will never realize the vision Elohim has given you if you are not walking in obedience, virtue, and the fear of Elohim. As I say, this is the fine print required for you to unlock greater works according to the will of Elohim. Matthew 7 through 8 is revealing. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it shall be opened. Now, it goes without saying that many have read this passage and immediately they began asking the Most High for many blessings. And there is a very good chance that they did not receive one. Here is why. The key to unlocking all the blessings Yahushua Messiah promised to those who ask, seek, and knock is spiritual quality. To wit, you must endure the spiritual processes required to qualify yourself to receive the many blessings of Elohim. For, as I have told you aforetime, there is nothing you can't have if you are qualified to ask. Facts again. Now, if you recall, I addressed the concept of spiritual quality at the beginning of phase 2 in the key to building strong assemblies, which was posted on August 4th, 2025. A powerful podcast I encourage you to re-engage when you have the time. Now, amongst other things, that podcast analyzed how spiritual quality is infinitely superior to spiritual quantity as it pertains to the works of men. And if we apply that lesson to this discussion, here is what we will find. The quantity of your works is irrelevant when it comes to your ability to unlock the many blessings of Elohim. On the other hand, what is relevant is the quality of your work, which is proven by your ability to operate in the precepts of obedience, virtue, and the fear of Elohim. For, as you know, these are the greatest validations of your faith in Elohim. Selah. As you have sought, so have you found. Now, in the books of the Nazarene, chapter 9, verse 54, Yahushua Messiah is saying, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened. These things are the Torah of life, for at the end it will be said to you, as you sought, so have you found, and according to the manner of asking have you received. It is not what you seek, but how you seek, not what you request, but the manner of requesting. Now, there are many treasures in these words spoken by our loving Master, Yahushua Messiah. And for the sake of high time, we will touch on a few of them before we conclude this podcast. Let's make it happen. Now, first of all, this verse in the books of the Nazarene is aligned with Matthew 7, to wit, the Torah on asking, seeking, and knocking is found in both books. And yet, there is a difference. Get this. In the books of the Nazarene, Yahushua Messiah refers to the Torah of asking, seeking, and knocking as the Torah of life. Ergo, the man who asks but does not receive has no life in the Ruach of Elohim. And the same rule applies to the man who seeks but does not find, and the man who knocks but the door is not opened. Now, it may be hard for some to believe that a prayer life that is persistently ineffectual is evidence that one does not have life in the Ruach of Elohim. But let me tell you something. These are the same transgressors who are not walking in faith, obedience, virtue, or the fear of Elohim. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, you would have to be spiritually insane to think that Yahuwah is giving spiritual life to those who doubt him, to those who disobey him, to those who are in contempt of his will, and to those who refuse to give him the reverence he deserves. Notwithstanding the fact that the majority in this nation have been infected with this spiritual strain of insanity is evidence that they are ignorant to the true meaning of life. Ergo, we should consider a spiritual definition of life to guard ourselves from their insanity. By definition, life is the existence of one who is devoted to Elohim, having put their trust in the eternal salvation, which is prepared for those who guard his Torah. Now, in addition to this definition, you must consider this. The Hebrew concept of life is depicted by a circle that never ends. To wit, it begins with the breath of life, which is required for a man to become a living soul. Then it transitions to the Torah of life, which is illustrated by complete devotion to Elohim. And finally, the conclusion of the cycle is everlasting life, i.e., the eternal inheritance of all who kept the Torah of life. Praise Yah. Now, that said, the question of the hour is quite simply this. Seeing as the Torah of life is the center of our existence and the door that leads to everlasting life. How do we know if we are truly guarding the Torah of life? The answer is sure, and we have already analyzed it. To wit, you must unlock the Torah of asking, seeking, and knocking. For, as the Master declared, this is the Torah of life. Now, to our good fortune, our blessed Savior did not stop with a high level explication of the Torah of life. Au contraire, mon frère, for he tells us what we must do to find what we seek and to receive what we ask. For look, listen, it has been written. At the end, it will be said to you, as you sought, so have you found. And according to the manner of asking, have you received. It is not what you seek, but how you seek. Not what you request, but the manner of requesting. Now, this line clearly reveals that the most critical factor of the Torah of life is not what you seek. Quite the contrary, it is how you seek. Look here. If you seek to do greater works, that's a good thing. But let me tell you something. The fact that you are seeking is only one half of the Torah of life. As I say, the second and more critical half is how you are seeking, a key matter I touched on 2 weeks ago when we analyzed the conceptual model for greater works. And in case you don't remember, I will offer it once again as a treasure box. And this time, I advise you to remember. There are spiritual guidelines associated with every great work. Ergo, our ability to do greater works is contingent to our ability to follow the spiritual guidelines upon every great work, as they are revealed to us by the set apart Spirit. For Yahuwah is not only interested in what you did, quite the contrary, for he is also interested in how you did it. And in many cases, how you did it is even more important than what you did. My dear friends, this is why Yahushua is declaring, as you sought, so have you found. In effect, if you follow the spiritual guidelines as you seek to do greater works, then in the sure course of time, you, my friend, will do greater works. For as you sought in accordance with the will of Elohim, his will become your reality. Praise Yah. Now, as it pertains to these guidelines, we have already checked 5 boxes. To wit, there is a box for faith, a box for obedience, a box for virtue, a box for the fear of Elohim, and a box for the Torah of life. However, there are more boxes we must check before we cover all the bases for the procedural model for greater works. And this is something we must certainly do. For here again, this is the most critical model for greater works. Trust me, there is no value in the other models if you never unlock the power to understand how you can be used by the set apart Spirit to do greater works in the heavens and on the earth. That said, we will table this discussion for now, and we will reconvene at the appointed time as we continue analyzing the path we must follow to do greater works. As always, stay locked in, and I'll see you next week. Yahuwah bless you until then. Now, here is the final word. Let this simmer in your mind. How you seek reveals what you will find. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, we have reached the critical path in this series on greater works. To wit, we are at the juncture where the rubber meets the road, where it all comes together, and the proverbial moment of truth. Now, let me tell you something. You can know who Yahuwah wants to do a greater work for. You can know why he wants to do a greater work. And you can know what the greater work is. But if you don't know how to do the greater work, all hope will be lost, for nothing will be accomplished. And that's the way it is. Heretofore, I recommend be on the right side of greater works, for we are about to see who can do it. For every man is going through the intense fire, and the man who survives must prove it. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We can play today's podcast, Greater Works You Shall Do, Part 6. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 650, a lesson before receiving wisdom. I will post this podcast on Monday, May 11th, 2026. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.